And now, it is my privilege to welcome Chi Onwurah, a leader in technology, innovation, and public service. Chi has been the Labour MP since 2010 and is the Shadow Minister for Digital Science and Technology. Her career spans industry, politics, and advocacy, with a focus on using technology to create opportunities for all. Previously, Chi served as the Shadow Cabinet Officer Minister, leading on cybersecurity, social entrepreneurship, civil contingency, open government, and transparency. Before entering Parliament, Chi was head of telecoms technology of Ofcom, the UK communications regulator. As a chartered engineer and business leader herself, Chi has held several key roles in developing telecom markets in the UK, France, Nigeria, and South Africa. Chi is a presidency member of Party of European Socialists, a fellow of Institution of Engineering and Technology, a fellow of City and Guilds of London Institute, and an honorary fellow of British Science Association. I have redacted a lot of her achievements. I invite you to please read about her. She has a Wikipedia page, thankfully. With her broad expertise and tireless work in the intersection of policy and technology, Chi is going to share with us how AI innovation can be for all. I welcome Chi.
Thank you very much, and thank you so much for that introduction. I mean, I was quite intimidated by it myself. I'm looking forward to what I'm going to say. And it's great to be here, and a big thank you to the Turing Institute for inviting me to speak today, and also for being so flexible about my, the time of this has changed in relation to trains and different commitments and extra. But I was really keen to speak today because it's a subject very close to my heart. I'll talk about that, but it's also a forum, in a stage of the evolution of AI. You as an audience, as a group of people who have such expertise, interest, experience in this subject, and are going to be part of driving the future, I hope, an equitable future for AI, unlocking innovation for all. It's really great to be here, and indeed I feel that I've learned a lot just by listening to the part of the panel that I caught. I think that progressive groups dividing themselves over issues is not something that, as a Labour Party member, I have any experience of whatsoever. And I think that was a very timely concern. So, yeah, I'm really. I call myself a tech evangelist. Oh, I must correct just one point on the bio. I think it's slightly out of date. So I'm the chair of the Science, Innovation and Technology Select Committee. I was the Shadow Minister for Science, Innovation and Technology. But I want to talk about AI unlocking innovation for all, and particularly from the point of view of a politician and an engineer. So software today is such a huge part of our lives. It's part of everybody's life, really. There are very few people in this country, and indeed across the world, who are not engaging with technology in some way, every day. But to too many people, it is obscure and inaccessible. There's no part of our economy that's not run through or in tandem with software. However, often my constituents feel that technology is something that is done to them rather than with them and for their benefit. And they do not feel a sense of agency or indeed, engagement and involvement in tech. And as the representative of the people in Parliament, our role as parliamentarians is to demonstrate that the opposite is true, that through close cooperation with the widest range of perspectives, we, the people, can steer new technology to work in all our interests. So I want people to feel empowered to take control of the tech, the software that rules their workspace, their workplaces and personal lives. And just as with food or an electrical product, people have to have a basic level of trust that products are safe. We need to develop the same sort of understanding and confidence with regard to new technologies or evolving technologies, such as AI, with standards that can be trusted. And so for me, open source very much represents the opportunity to build trust and democratize technology. That's why I've been committing to champion open source during my time as a Member of Parliament, whether as Shadow Minister, as now as chair of the Select Committee. I mean, that's part of the reason why. I mean, the other reason is obviously my experience of proprietary standards and software languages. And I started my working life as a hardware engineer. So that's my background as an electrical engineer. I was designing circuit boards for switches for business switches, and then moved into the company I was working for, an American company, stopped its hardware development in the UK, which is a history that many companies did. I moved into software development, and my first working role as a software engineer was to using a proprietary language for the switching systems for Northern Telecom, a big Canadian-American company. And that experience, I actually went to Canada to spend 6 weeks learning this proprietary language, and then spent 2 or 3 years writing and using it. And it was such a closed environment. I was trying to, at the same time, develop standards to enable different switches from different companies, from Siemens and other companies, to talk to each other. Open standard for business telecommunications. And the fact that so much was using proprietary languages, was a huge barrier to transparency, interconnectivity. It was a productivity barrier as well. And so for me, open standards and open source is also an economic, I think we talked about economic and industrial accelerator. Because if we're taking away the barriers to interconnectivity and taking away the barriers to growing a new language or a new standard, is a key way of driving that more effective diffusion. So that's part of what drives me, my support for and interest in open source. And in contrast to public concern about technologies being opaque and obscure and governing their lives, open source software is code that is designed to be publicly accessible. Anyone can see, modify, and distribute the code as they see fit. This can have an enormous benefits for public confidence of those community. That are communicated to the public, and I think it also has enormous benefits for practitioners in terms of being able to develop and use transferable skills. And that means there's also substantial economic benefits. The collaboration inherent to open source helps to foster competition and innovation, which are key drivers of economic growth. And I have a statistic here that open source has already contributed 27% of the UK's tech sector gross value added in 2022. And the internet was born of open standards and collaboration frameworks. So I think it's no exaggeration to say that open source underpins much of the digital infrastructure we rely upon today. From operating systems like Linux, one of my favorite, to programming languages like Python, open source technologies have become essential in driving creativity and progress. Now, as we move through this new sort of technological revolution marked by strides forwards in the capabilities of AI and its application across society and the economy, I think it's inevitable that open source will have a huge role to play. Certainly it should have a huge role to play. While leading developers have made their most advanced AI models proprietary, Meta's approach with its more openly available Llama models provides a useful point of comparison, which I'm sure you will be discussing. And as the previous Science Select Committee noted in their AI report, a healthy AI marketplace should be sufficiently diverse to support both open and closed options. The volume of investment flowing into AI developers of all types of models, rather than one or the other, is evidence of this market diversity. So I think the benefits of having an open approach to AI are plain to see. I'm not saying it should be exclusively open, but we need to have the option, if you like, or the availability of open AI. And I think, so I know tomorrow is the day when you're focusing more on ethical concerns. But for me, as the chair of the Select Committee and as a parliamentarian, I think ethical as well as economic opportunities and the ethical concerns are paramount. And open source provides a mechanism for scrutiny. Transparent code allows developers, regulators, and the public to examine how decisions are made, ensuring accountability and mitigating the risks of bias and misuse. And those are real concerns when it comes to the way in which AI is already being used. We've seen already how bias, if you like, in the training data can lead to bias in the outputs of AI models, and as given also the lack of diversity in those developing AI models, the need to have open scrutiny is all the greater. The second issue is in a volatile global context, when trade in goods and services is increasingly restricted along national and geopolitical lines. And obviously we've seen in the recent election in the US that we may have more trade restrictions in the new year. So open source AI encourages international cooperation on a matter of huge general interest. And thirdly, by encouraging open AI ecosystems, we stimulate entrepreneurship, create opportunities for businesses to adapt AI technologies to diverse needs from healthcare to agriculture. So open source initiatives could catalyze an entire generation of small, medium businesses and startups, strengthening our position on the global stage. Because I think, as one of the panelists says, we don't want small businesses only to be consumers of AI technology. We want them to be able to create and adapt and shape it to their needs. So I think that all these positives should be celebrated by politicians, and not only sort of celebrated, but actively pursued and delivered. So there's a lot of the discourse so far about AI has really been in terms of doom and gloom. And I think in no small part that's due to the previous government failing to tell a positive story about the role of AI in public life. We had a deputy prime minister roving around the civil service looking for jobs to cut with his AI hit squad, and boasting about that to the press. That is really not a great place to start. And then we had the previous prime minister, Rishi Sunak, who went to great lengths to host the AI summit and clearly had a significant interest in tech. He's from Stanford, after all, fanboying Elon Musk, but then telling the public that AI could end the world, but there was nothing that he was going to do about it right now. I think in contrast, the Labour Science and Technology team, now as part of that team at the time, we tried to tell a much more positive story about how AI could be shaped to serve the public good. And as a chartered engineer and having worked around the world in technology for 20 years, I always say that I went into politics for exactly the same reasons I went into engineering, which is to make the world work better for everyone. And AI can certainly really play a leading role in doing that for future generations and for people working and living right now. But this means, as the previous panel talked about a bit, looking at the legal and regulatory challenges to protect the public from the harms and to ensure, from the potential harms, and to ensure that the opportunities are equitably spread. And I think for the legal and regulatory challenges when it comes to open source AI, as I said, I'm a self-confessed tech evangelist, but I'm also a tech realist. You know, and I think spending a lot of time debugging tech seems to me, it tends to make you into a realist. And the Internet Watch Foundation has highlighted the use of open source AI models to generate harmful and illegal content, and has suggested a greater role for regulatory oversight or developer safeguards. And just on Wednesday, my committee launched its first inquiry, which is looking at the role of AI in algorithms and algorithms in spreading misinformation on social media, particularly in regard to the appalling riots that we had, you know, over the summer. You know, we talk a lot about online harms, but I think there's nothing quite so real world as bricks being thrown through police stations and vulnerable asylum seekers cowering in a centre whilst a mob tries to set their home on fire. So online harms have real world consequences, and that is what we will be trying to look at. But the fact is, and I've asked the committee staff, you know, to see if we can get someone to bring in an actual social media algorithm. You know, let's have a look at an actual algorithm. And of course, all the social media platforms protect their algorithms and say that they're commercially sensitive. So the ability of parliamentarians to scrutinise it, you know, we're presented with a black box in so many cases that we, you know, the ability to understand what is actually happening, and particularly the link between the algorithms and AI and the business models and the revenues that platforms are receiving. So that, you know, that's a real challenge for us. I think that's a real challenge for the regulatory environment. Of course, that's much less of a problem with open source. And I hope to hear from the sector about the ways that open source and open source AI could help to support free speech, online safety and public trust. The call for evidence for the inquiry is on the parliamentary website, so please take a look at it. As well as obviously we'll be hearing from government about what they are doing, or what the government is doing to manage harms. But while we should be utterly dedicated to mitigating these harms, that shouldn't mean we should lose sight of the opportunities here. I think we have extraordinary opportunities to drive transformation and growth across the economy if with the diffusion of new accessible, trusted innovations like open source AI products and services. The industrial strategy, which I think was mentioned, Green Paper rightly emphasizes the role of innovation and diffusion of technologies like AI to drive growth in our key sectors, and growth is the #1 mission of this government. And the life sciences, for example, which have long been a jewel in the British economy, and a report on generative AI by Accenture found that its application in the life sciences sector could bring new medicines to market up to 4 years faster than otherwise. And so in this era of breakthrough treatments, faster drug discovery will help to transform patient outcomes. That's another goal of one of the missions of the new government. You know, for example, the Novo Nordisk pharma company, through its new drug or new application, existing drug, Ozempic, kept the Danish economy from recession last year. And as we look to achieve the highest standard of growth in the G7, we need an industrial strategy that helps shape AI-enabled sectorial growth. In the UK, if the UK economy had grown at the average rate of OECD economies for the last 14 years, our economy would be £140 billion larger. And that's, that's money which would go into more jobs, better, higher wages, but it would also be going to tax for better public services, which is a direct benefit to my constituents. But indeed, just talking a bit, finally looking at public services, there's a huge potential for open AI to improve outcomes for the public and maintain the trust and integrity of these services. So one of the first things that the new government did was in August at the Global Education Innovation Summit in South Korea, we announced we would be pooling documents like lesson plans and curriculum guidance to create a new content store, which would allow AI firms to train up their models with government-certified information and develop new tools to help teachers mark homework and write creative lessons and save their time, enabling them to spend more time teaching with students and breaking down barriers to opportunities for everyone. And I think that's such a contrast to what the previous Deputy Prime Minister was doing, saying AI is going to take away your job if you're not at your desk more often. What we're saying is that AI is going to enable teachers to do more of the job that they love, actually spending time with students rather than spending time marking coursework. And likewise, in the NHS, there's huge scope for generative AI to support management, boost productivity of hospitals and GP services. And public sector productivity is one of the biggest challenges in Britain, and the public directly face the consequences as the users and funders of public services. And I think it's a really positive, it can be a real positive story about AI, one that my constituents can engage with and understand and see the benefits directly to them. And ultimately, that's what, it needs to make a difference. We need to show that AI is making a positive difference in people's lives, because there's at the same time, there's enormous concern from a skeptical public about the way that their sensitive data is handled. And it's just another way in which open source can play a big role in combating the mistrust in the public and rebuilding confidence. And I also feel very strongly that unless we show, as a government and as a parliament, that we are embracing AI, we can't expect our constituents to do so. So that's partially bringing the benefits of AI to public services. It's also about Parliament. I mean, I have somebody in my office who spends 3 days a week just going through my invitations. And enabling me to be places like here. That much of the work that she is doing could be done by, not even, and certainly like quite a basic AI function. And I've been working with the parliamentary authorities to try and bring AI tools, again, with the right safeguards and in the right privacy context into Parliament. Now, Parliament is actually based on, uses a Microsoft 365 platform. I would love to see an open AI platform supporting members of Parliament in their work. And we have an excellent digital team in Parliament. But I think they could certainly benefit from the support and help of the sector in transitioning to a more AI enabled model, as could many MPs. This intake of MPs, the 2024 intake of MPs, it's big. It's very big. It's predominantly Labour. Obviously, that's how we won the election. But it's also, I think, fundamentally much more tech savvy than previous intakes. I mean, I think I am still the only chartered engineer in the House, but I'm no longer sort of the only MP with a real interest and knowledge of technology. We have new MPs who have written books on AI, who have worked in AI in the NHS. And I would urge you all have an MP. I would urge you to engage with your MPs and highlight to them the importance that they take a consideration and look at AI, because nobody likes to look stupid, and I think MPs more than other other jobs, are afraid to look stupid. And that can be a barrier to engaging with and talking about technology authoritatively or confidently or at all. And one of the things I really want to do in this Parliament is to up Parliament's game in talking about technology and AI specifically, because unless we are doing that, again, we can't expect our constituents to do that. So I would, urge you to get involved, and also, to engage with the Department for Science, Innovation and Technology, which is led by Peter Kyle, the Science Technology, who I think really grasps some of the opportunities first, and who understands just how important the role of AI could be in improving public services and driving better delivery in the public interest and driving economic growth. And as the digital heart of government, and one of the first things they've done is to launch the Regulatory Innovation Office, which is helping to shape pro-innovation regulation. And obviously, I think that is directly very relevant to OpenAI. So please take a look at that. And as I said, I worked at my last job before coming into Parliament was working for Ofcom, and pro-innovation regulation, which is supportive of OpenAI, can make a huge difference. So as a chair of the Science, Innovation and Technology Committee, it's a real, we have to decide what our priorities are and where we're going to be looking over the next few years. It's really clear to me that AI is obviously a huge driver of social impact over this Parliament. I would like to see better how OpenAI can play a part in that, and I think you're going to be talking over some of the challenges in terms of standards, in terms of security, in terms of perhaps collaboration. But I really hope that you're able to support a positive evolution for OpenAI, which can really drive the diffusion of AI technologies in the public interest. Thanks very much.
Just need the mic. Thank you so much, Chi. We have some questions on Slido. We still have a few more minutes, so please do add your question on Slido. Actually, have first question from Kirsty, and because she's sitting in the front, I thought you would just ask yourself.
Oh, that's very, very kind, because I ran out of characters in the Slido question, so I'm really delighted to be able to have the microphone. So what I wrote in there was that it's so exciting and it's so wonderful to hear you bring so much like technical and sort of experiential expertise into Parliament. And you started to touch on it towards the end, but I wonder what's needed for the people who don't have all of the previous career as an electrical engineer, all of your colleagues, maybe on sort of both sides, what expertise do they need, or what do they need, given how busy they are, to be able to meaningfully engage in these conversations? Yeah,
well, that's a great question. I think I'd say there's three things. I did kind of touch on it a bit, but first they need to know that the public, people, this will impact people, constituents. They need to know that it's relevant. Our job is to represent our constituents and to try and make their lives better. They need to know it's relevant to that. So we need to, I think I was talking as an engineer, we need to be better at communicating the impact now. As I said, Rishi Sunak, it's an existential threat of AI. That's sort of been communicated, but actually the impact right now, both positive and potentially negative, to communicate that. Then, I think that the sector also needs to be more open to engaging with politicians, recognizing that they're not all experts in this area. So I also think there's no such thing as a dumb question, and Parliament has a real interest in this area, so I think bringing particular sort of case studies or use cases, if you want to call it, to parliamentarians, to perhaps our committee or to your MP, and talking about them and discussing them. There are many ways in which issues can be raised in Parliament, be it through parliamentary questions or Westminster Hall debates, and maybe you could work with parliamentary groups to have that happen. And then, I think the sector would also benefit from sort of championing, I'm not just talking about, I'm talking about myself, but championing MPs who do that, giving positive feedback to the MPs, whether or not they have a technical background or not. Because, for example, MPs who are concerned, and there are a lot in the Labour Party, about working, we've promised a new deal for working people and about rights of people at work. If you can set out the direct link between OpenAI and knowing what it is, how working people are being their actions, their toilet breaks, whatever, is being monitored, and having access to that and transparency of that. If you can set out those direct links, then that really will encourage us all to talk more about it. As I said, technology is a much bigger part of people's lives now than it was 20, 30 years ago, and I think Parliament needs to reflect that in what we debate and what we talk about.
We have one more question. We actually 2 questions, but they're very much similar. What are some government plans for supporting SMEs who are developing innovative open source AI solutions? And I'm going to add in that there's something you also mentioned, that there are vulnerable communities who will be at risk of their jobs because of AI and automation. So what are some plans to ensure that open source AI level the playing fields for specifically minority communities?
Okay, so so in terms of specifically the support for SMEs developing AI product solutions and products, I mean, that support will come fundamentally from UKRI. I'm actually going to a UKRI event after this in Parliament, and I don't know what streams of funding they have specifically. So for InnovateUK, offers funding. You can apply for funding for innovative companies who are developing AI products and services, and I think that needs to perhaps we need to have a discussion with UKRI. Are they here? Yeah, on that very subject. I think also the business bank that we are, the British Business Bank, which the new government is sort of, it already exists, but sort of expanding its remit to provide more support for new and emerging businesses. And also I think the universities need to be able to better support their spin-outs, and particularly up through to scale up. And I know that the government, understand that government is looking at that. I think there's 2 issues about vulnerable minorities. There's obviously the issue of the jobs which may go because of AI can do them, and ensuring that people in those jobs, there's workplace training, and this is something which I think is lacking from many big organisations, of workplace training for those in less skilled roles, and obviously often they have been outsourced, the catering or whatever, and so offering in-work training for those who might be threatened, and also ensuring that different voices and different backgrounds are involved in the development of AI products and services. And I think, again, open source, by being transparent, can have an important role to play there. Okay.
Thank you so much, Chi.
No,
thank you for the
very much.
keynote. Please thank Chi.
Thanks.